Being great at sales is essential to your business and your career, but you and I both know that the stress of selling and dealing with constant rejection can be an emotional drain. My entire brand, No BS Selling, is based on the belief that professional sales is a skill and not a personality, and that to be better at sales takes constant refinement and a dedication to your craft. This show is for salespeople and entrepreneurs who are committed to improving their sales skills and getting better results, and are sick and tired of the BS game that often happens between buyers and sellers. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Walker McKay. I'll help you and your sales team make selling easier, feel less cheesy, and be more lucrative. It's time to change the rules and level the playing field between you and the people you sell to. You're already good, let's be better. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Walker McKay. I'm so excited today. Got a guest, somebody I met a couple weeks ago who's cool as hell. His name is Bob Howard. And Bob is the founder and president of a company called Contact Science. And they help companies design, implement, and manage telephone prospecting programs that are customized to fit their specific prospecting challenges. Bob is a subject matter expert on business process approach to appointment setting, which is the goal that all of us are looking for, right? How do we get more appointments? How do we get in front of more people? So Bob is going to talk today about why we should adopt a process approach to setting appointments. Hey, Bob, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Walker, I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. So tell me something. You're in this space where you use technology, computers, right? You're using technology to help people prospect. How was this an interest of yours? How did you get started with this idea in the first place?
Well, we actually began to use a video-based tool, to build out a better way to prospect. And we installed it in 5 different companies, and it failed in all 5. So when we went to look at why, we did a postmortem, what we discovered was it's not really the messaging device, voicemails or emails or videos. It's just got to be easier to do. The tools that most companies have, which are CRMs, are absolutely painful to use for appointment setting. So that set us then on a path to create what we called back then the one-man call center. So the gentleman sitting in his office at home, maybe straight commission. If he doesn't prospect, he will perish. We made it easy enough for that guy to be successful setting appointments. So that's how we got here.
So you looked at this thing and said, all right, how can I, the difference in my world, it sounds like in yours too, the difference between success and failure in sales is how to get in front of people. How do we get appointments, right? And so you made it easier with technology to make it so that one guy could sit in his office or whatever, sit at home and set appointments for other people. How long did it take you to hone that process down?
So it probably took us 2 years or so. We got a lot of input from early customers. We were really focused on how easy it is. Easy being doesn't take a lot of mouse clicks. You don't have to look at a lot of screens. You have the right amount of information in front of you, the right type of information in front of you. So I think we probably had it pretty well in hand after about 2 years.
And you have a specific vertical that you guys like to work with, right? Are you mostly in the software as a service kind of that most of your customers?
Well, vertical is a funny word. We believe that anyone that grows their business or can grow their business by picking up the phone, trying to set appointments, and then successfully setting them, that's our niche. So that's what we're after.
Seems like it makes sense.
Yeah. So from a vertical standpoint, we're not a CRM. We interface to CRMs. We are a vehicle that feeds the pipeline, if you would. Yeah. In those CRMs.
One of the things that you said early on when we met was you said we make this prospecting thing simple so that people will do it, because prospecting itself is intimidating. If we make it the least bit difficult or make it the least bit complicated, people won't do it.
We're both sales guys, and so we can both appreciate that no matter how much value it could add to my pocketbook, how much commission I might earn by doing something, if that something is difficult to do, I'm probably not going to do it. I'm going to look, see if there's an easier way. So we're all about the easy way as sales guys, and telephone prospecting has never been viewed as an easy way. So that's been our mission, is to show people that, hey, it's a lot easier than you think. It may not be any more fun, but it can certainly not be painful.
You know, and if you're in the process that you develop, right, it's you can be more consistent as well, right? And that's one of the things that I talk about with prospecting, and I'm a big believer in time blocking, and meaning that maybe you say, I'm going to make calls for an hour. And so you have your cup of water and you have your list and you get started making calls. Because I can make between 17 and 22 calls with conversations in an hour. But if I don't time block, it could take me all day or 2 days to make 17 to 20 prospecting phone calls. Your system is even stronger than that. Tell us about the numbers there that you find that your customers are able to, conversations and dials are able to make in a period of time.
I'll do that. But let me comment on consistency.
Thank you.
When you begin to view appointment setting as a business process, which it is, one of the real mandates for process is you have to operate it consistently.
Yep.
And therefore, every week, if your goal is 100 a week or maybe even 100 a day, you got to hit those goals every single week.
Yes.
And that's part of the consistency. The other consistency issue is pursuing people in the right way, and pursuing hundreds of people simultaneously and doing it perfectly every time is very, very important to the concept of consistency. But in terms of metrics, you know, my favorite metric is number of dials that people can do in a week. And we see people that are dedicated appointment setters, they can do 600, 650 pursuits every week. It's extraordinary. They sit down in front of the tool and just start making calls. Now they can do anywhere from 18 to 24, 25 in an hour. And that is typically a 50-minute hour.
Right.
If you're doing this heads down all day, you got to take a break every 50 minutes or so.
Right,
But,
absolutely.
But your point about call blocks is one of the reasons why field sales reps typically fail at being consistent in setting appointments, is they don't hold those call blocks that they set for themselves every week sacrosanct. Anything, a root canal, I'll go get my root canal done during my call block. I mean, so that it's a discipline that's very difficult to do. We believe we make it a little bit easier, because one of the challenges that you have when you have a call block is sometimes it takes a while just to get ready. You know,
yes.
You got to go find your list, and you go log into a certain section, and you got to kind of figure out where you left off last time and what you got to do this time. So a lot of thinking and remembering, and some machinations before you get started. And our approach is you can get started in 10 seconds. So,
Button and go. Can you describe what the process is like, Bob?
So, you know, when you sit down and think about a process, you think about the elements in the process, and in an appointment setting, those elements are: one, making a dial. So how many dials are you willing to make in the pursuit of any given target? And it might be 3, might be 5. Sometimes it depends on the complexity of the product. Then how frequently do you do that? Do you do them every day? Do you do them every week, every 2 weeks? What makes sense for your product and market? And then once you decide that, you have also basically decided how many people you can reach out to in a year, because telephone prospecting is very mathematical.
Yep.
All right, so now you got what we call this framework: how many times to call, frequently. Then you decide what kind of messages to leave. You know, if you don't leave a voicemail, they don't know you called, and you don't get any branding. You've created no mind share at all. So you need to have a really value-based voicemail that you can leave, and a follow-up email. So by call, send an email that follows up. Those are 2 touches. Yeah, but that's what you do. How many times to call? How are you going to message it? And then another important element of your best practice is when you get to the end, and most telephone prospecting pursuits don't end with a conversation, because it's a small numbers game. But that's okay. We win even in the small numbers game. But at the end, what you need to decide is, are they worth another dial?
Yes.
And so you've got to make a determination as to what is your long-term plan in terms of how frequently you're going to reach out to them. Most companies pick 6 months. between pursuits, but obviously you can pick anything you'd like.
So you guys, it's a software program, right, that makes it more simple for sales guys to prospect, and that you actually feed your list into the program. Is that correct? And then you, as you're moving forward, it can throw things into what we call a cadence, right? Where you say, all right, I'm going to call this person back in 2 days because I got a voicemail, and I'm going to call them back 4 days after that if I get voicemail again.
Exactly. You can be as creative as you like. And we can help you automate it so you execute it.
So where do people fail with your system?
I think the biggest failure that we see is management. We don't have any problem telling companies that success at appointment setting is actually a manager's game.
Yeah.
Because this is a resource that a manager has. And salespeople don't mind sitting down doing something that's easy, that's well-defined, and that you measure it accurately and not subjectively. So managers have a role in all three of those. And if programs fail, it's in one of those three areas. Now, the most common one is things get moving forward and they start looking good, and the manager goes, these weekly meetings, I'll go to every 2 weeks. And then at some point they say, this guy's got it, he's going to do well. That's really not what happens. Even your best, most dedicated appointment setters at some point kind of get off the rails a little bit,
Yeah.
Because we're sales guys. If something works and we get bored doing it, well, then we'll do something else that may not work as well, but at least it's different. That's the way we look at it. It's
one of my least favorite, but most often stated things is, damn, I used to do that and it worked. So I quit. Right? Dang it. It sucks. So
that's our nature. We can't help ourselves. So managers, it's the manager's job to make sure that everyone is focused on improving the process. So it's a different mindset. The managers that are really successful that we see, they're always looking for ways to make it better. And their team knows that. So they all have this mindset of, we got something that's working, we can make it work better. So they don't kind of get off the rails. They get focused on making it better. That's why it's a manager's game.
I think it's interesting, and I love that because I believe it's a manager's game and that prospecting and sales is a manager's game, simply because I find that my best clients are ones that love accountability. And what I find is it's often the manager that gives up on accountability before the salesperson does. And whether they get bored with it or whether they don't have time for it, or maybe they feel like, gosh, somebody's doing really well, I'm gonna move to somebody else and spend time with them. I don't know what that is. But it's usually the manager that fails, that quits holding the accountability meetings, quits doing that kind of stuff. Do you find the same?
That's exactly what we find. Well said.
So this is kind of a 30,000 foot question. A lot of people will say phone calls don't work anymore. I don't do cold calls, and prospecting calls don't work anymore. How do you respond to that?
I think cold calling is probably historically one of the most proven ways to find new customers that there is.
Yep.
Arguably, and I could argue for this, that it's gotten more difficult perhaps over the last 10, 15 years, simply because phone trees are challenging. Gatekeepers now go to training on how to deal with cold callers, but it still works. And the other point I like to make is that you only have two options to generate new relationships. One is inbound marketing, and the other is outbound being cold calling.
Yeah.
Now, the inbound marketing tools can help with the outbound by helping identify people that are looking at emails, or maybe they, go to a landing page. They certainly can help. But I would tell you, most of my clients I have, because they've tried all the inbound that they could eat, and it just didn't grow their business. They pay Google tons of money for AdWords. They get these marketing companies and these high-end marketing tools thinking they can market their way to success, and they just can't. So they augment it with outbound, and outbound works. It just works.
It's easy. It's more comfortable for whomever, VPs of whatever, to say, let's just throw more marketing dollars at it, because that's easier to spend that money than it is to do a better job hiring people, to have managers to hold people accountable, to do the freaking hard work, right? You can get somebody else to do your marketing stuff. write the check and move on. And then you blame the marketing and you fire the marketing when your people can't close the damn business, or they get a lead and they call it one time and they don't get to them and then they lose the damn lead and move on.
That's probably true. We're all about efficiency in pursuing names, and the names that are pursued the most inefficiently that we find are leads. That's the number one. They think it's a slam dunk, and they don't apply any kind of skills or any kind of process to try to get them on the phone to set the appointment because they think it's a piece of cake. If it doesn't happen the first couple of times, they quit. The other one that people abuse regularly is referrals. There's a very specific way you should pursue a referral on a telephone so that you don't burn out your referral source. The last thing you want to know is, hey, the guy that I gave you as a referral, he called me and told me to never give his name out again because
you mind sharing your process for referrals?
Typically, referrals are only 3 calls. And then if you don't get them in the first 3, you wait 60 days and you try it again. So it's actually kind of 2 pursuits that are closely tied together. And the messaging is typically also kind of value-based. Walker had given me your name. We've done some work with him, and he's very happy about solving this problem. I'd love to share a little bit with you about how he did that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not coming at him saying, hey, I could do the same for you. I don't know that. I don't know that on a cold call either. Right. You never say that on a cold call.
Of course not.
But that's the idea. And then you try them a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And in that last message, you say, maybe Walker didn't really know what he's talking about or didn't realize maybe you're busy. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to call you again, but I will in a couple of months reach out one more time.
Sure.
So that's a nice, polite, professional way. And your referrals then will appreciate that. And then you get more mileage out of it. Because when you do call back the second time, they're more inclined to talk to you actually than they are the first time.
Well, that's what you talked about with branding and marketing with leaving emails.
Yes.
I mean, voicemails, because you're creating some sort of, at least a digital bond. Can I share some language that I use with people when they're calling referrals?
Sure.
What I will say is if I were, if you'd referred me to somebody, my voicemail to somebody would be, hey, John, Bob suggested you and I talk. My phone number is 803-917-2817. I'll let him know I made first contact. I look forward to hearing from you. Click. What do you think about that with less information rather than more? I mean, you're the pro in this stuff more than me.
Yeah, but see, this is where talents like yours augment talents like mine. I'm not a good voicemail and email writer. I'm not schooled in that. Trainers that understand messaging and understand good tactics and techniques in messaging are always needed for a successful process.
Right.
My company, we can make you as efficient as you're ever going to be getting people on the phone in like 2 weeks. It's just that easy. But when you get someone to actually answer the phone is when they need skills like yours to say, based on your product, your market, et cetera, here's the messaging you really ought to use. So I like yours better.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think that there's no silver bullet, right? We all have to learn that. There's no one script, one way. It's sometimes we just get lucky and we think we're good. Sometimes we get unlucky and we think we're bad or whatever. So it's just different. I describe it as dragging different. Are you a fisherman, Bob?
Now and then, yes.
Are you? So you ever been deep sea fishing? Ever been offshore?
Oh, I had never done that.
It's a younger man's game, younger man than me's game. And often what you're doing is you're way out at sea, and you drag different kinds of baits behind the boat at different depths. So one may be on the surface, one may be at 25 feet down, and one may be at 100 feet down, and 3 different baits. And so a fish, we got to go where the fish are, and we got to do whatever would attract the fish. And so what I tell people is, there are 3 reasons that a fish would bite a hook. Do you know this?
No. What are the 3?
Number 1 would be that they're hungry, right? They bite a hook because they're hungry. Number 2 is because they're curious. They don't have little hands, and the only way they can tell what something is by biting it. Or number 3 is if they're angry, right? And someone floats over the bed, and they go, whoa, to go eat it to get it out of the way. And so if you catch a fish and you figure out that it only bit because it was curious and not because it was hungry, you're not going to throw it back. what we want to do is just get people to call us back, and I don't care why, right? And we got to figure out what is it that would make them respond, and maybe what one person responds to is not what somebody else would respond to. So what's the hardest thing about selling what you have, Bob?
I think the hardest part is that people don't really understand that there is a different way to prospect. They view prospecting as something that salespeople should kind of already know how to do. Yeah. We call those managers, they're hooked on hopium. They hire them and just hope they can do it. They don't really dive into what it really takes to do the task, so they don't really appreciate a business process approach. So, we have a lot of evangelizing to do in order to sell our product. But we get a lot of referrals, and that's always nice. People that solve this problem, they go tell their friends over lunch, and they say, man, we solved this problem. You ought to talk to these guys. So that's the biggest challenge we have is just kind of a little bit different approach. Yeah, I like that. So let me share with you a couple of things I've learned, if you don't mind, because I really was good. I love that you said that prospecting typically is it's a manager's, it's something that managers fail at more than salespeople fail at, because they don't hold people accountable. They forget to have the meetings. They just kind of move on to something else. I think that's so important for us to remember. We blame the salespeople, but honestly, it is the manager or whomever's over in charge. One of the things I laugh about all the time is I have owners. I bet 4 times a year they say, I just want to find a salesperson that, that's self-motivated, that will work on 100% commission, and they make all the damn money they want. They won't even need any management. And I tell people, oh shit, there are lots of them out there. They're just your competitors. We can't just, you can't expect that to work, especially not regularly. I like the idea as well that you have to be consistent, and because that is so damn true. It's consistency every single day that drives growth of the business. And a lot of times where salespeople get screwed up, I've seen is we do behavior, which increases our success rate. We book more appointments, then we get busy, and we think things will be different this time, and so then we stop prospecting. Exactly.
Which then creates the up and down, what they call the roller coaster ride of sales, which is bullshit. We created ourselves. Let me ask you, where would somebody get in touch with you? You had a cool giveaway that you were offering. Would you mind sharing that, and then where somebody could get in touch with you if they wanted to, Bob?
Sure. The best way to do it is just go to my website, contactscience.com. And there's a little bit there about our programs. And then there's a way that you just book a chat with me and we'll just talk about it. That's really the starting point with all of my customers. Let's just have a conversation about process. And let me ask you some questions to see, in my opinion, whether or not process would work for you. And that's kind of the beginning of all of our relationships with our customers.
I think that's a good way to start. So what about the giveaways you had about the health checkup for your prospecting?
Yeah, so alluded to the fact that some people don't really appreciate what process is. It's also a manager's game, et cetera. So what we have is a little checklist, or what we call a checkup, that I'll send to you, put it on your notes page in the podcast. But it basically challenges managers to do 3 things. And the first thing it challenges a manager to do is to sit and write down what he'd like for his callers to be doing in the pursuit of any given name. Let's say it's a cold call. How many times do you call? How frequently do you call? What is the voicemails? What is the emails? What would he like for them to do that he believes is the ideal way to use every single dial? Best and highest use of each dial. That's the goal. And once he's done that, go sit down with the sales guys and ask them what they do. And if they aren't doing what he wrote down, then he's got a problem with people not really understanding the most efficient way to set appointments. So anyway, that's the task that we would assign. The second one is that now sit down with one of your reps and say, listen, here's our program. What I'd like to do is to watch you call 5 people in a row. We won't actually make the phone call, but let's go through all the mechanics to follow this best practice and call 5 people in a row. And while you're doing that, I'm going to count every time you click your mouse and every time you look at a new screen, because telephone prospecting is physically painful to do. And so in the back of your mind, as you're watching this and you're making those clicks, about every time they click the mouse, every time they see a screen, in the back of your mind, I'd be willing to bet you'll say to yourself, who in the world could do this all day long?
Yeah.
This would drive you nuts.
Ugh.
But once you've seen it, then you have to ask yourself, can I write down this in a training class so the next guy that comes in could see this and learn how to do this process as efficiently as my tool allows them to do?
Yeah.
Chances are you'll say you aren't going to do it.
Right.
But anyway, so now the third thing that you got to do, and this is the most important for managers, is you got to look at the reporting that you can get out of the system. And the reporting should look at the process metrics. So when you think about processes, you want to be efficient and you want to be effective. So you measure efficiency by how many conversations did you generate to the number of people you called. So if you pursued 100 people and you got 10 conversations, that was a 10%, and that's probably good in a lot of industries. Now, the other metric you look at is, well, out of those conversations, how many did I convert into appointments? So let's say I got 10 conversations and I got one appointment, I'm 10% there. So you need to look and see if your systems can deliver you these basic metrics.
Yep.
If you don't have those metrics, you're lost. Now, the other thing that you'll look at, and there's lots of things that you could look at in terms of metrics. Most people, they overanalyze prospecting. It's not that complicated. You don't need tons and tons of metrics. But one of the things that you need to also think about as you're looking at these metrics are these things even credible? Do I believe them?
Right.
You know, where did they come from? Is the source of these metrics prone to maybe understate or overstate what it is they did or didn't do? And this will then also lead you into thinking through, how transparent is this approach? I mean, can people game me and I'm not going to know it? So as a manager,
Salespeople would try and game a plan or anything. That would never happen.
especially not cold calling.
Oh, hell no. Oh, I did 50, boss, I swear.
Yeah. So that's what that's kind of the check that you do with this document. We'll kind of walk you through that. But at the end of that, then you have taken a look at the key elements of a process. And if you aren't happy with those key elements, then you ought to talk to Contact Science. But it will let you know how well those three elements are ingrained in your program. And if they aren't there, you aren't going to do very well anyway.
I love that.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you one more question. I'll kind of catch you by surprise here. Bob, what's the kindest thing anybody's ever done for you?
The kindest thing anyone has ever done for me.
Or just pick one, because I'm sure they've done a lot of kind things.
Well, there's a lot of kind things. This may sound weird, and it's really kind of pandemic related, but my local margarita place that I can't go into anymore, they now have takeout frozen margaritas. And I really do appreciate that.
Man, that is kind. That is freaking great.
I know it. They're beautiful people.
Thank you so much. No BS sales team. I hope you paid attention to this. Please go to the show notes and check out the links to Bob's website and to that health checkup. My course, the No BS Sales System course, will be for sale July the 1st. It is $497. It is about 6 hours of video of me, a big hefty workbook, and a bunch of other stuff thrown in. If you want information on the course, there'll also be a link in the show notes to get information on that. We've got a lot of interest, been a bunch of pre-sales. So if you want to find out more about the No BS sales system so that you don't waste time with people who aren't going to do business with you, and you want to shorten your sales cycle, go check that out. Also, I think I was supposed to say smash the subscribe button and share this with somebody else who needs to hear it, who needs to know. Bob, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. You're great, and I appreciate you very much. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with us.
Walker, I've enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, buddy.